All right. Welcome to everyone on the Sneaker History Twitch and YouTube feeds, and anyone that's watching this afterwards, recorded on YouTube or Twitch. We are live with the Future of Footwear Reviews panel. My name is Drew Whitcomb. I'm a co-founder of WearTesters. We started as a basketball shoe review site in 2009, 2010, been going ever since. I mostly handle these days running shoe reviews, some casual shoe reviews, and then I handle the business side of WearTesters. And so I've got three great panelists here with me today, handpicked for their knowledge in the review space. First, we've got Jeff Dengate, who is the runner-in-chief, which is an amazing title, by the way, of Runner's World. And anyone who has run at all or looked for running shoe reviews has probably seen Runner's World pop up. He directs and edits all of the testing content for them. And he has a lot of other responsibilities there at the magazine. And before that, had a varied career in various fitness publications and things like that. And then also we've got Mike Guillory from Sneaker History. He is a co-host of the Sneaker History podcast, has his own review channel on YouTube, and he hits different niches: basketball, casual, skate shoes. Was even popping wheelies one day trying to test skate shoes. Not something I would attempt at my age, but I respect him for it. And then we've got Emily Heller from what is one of the better named YouTube channels out there, Run Like Heller. And she is an up and coming running shoe reviewer from Long Island, New York. She's got a very direct style, which those of you that watch WearTesters know we appreciate. And she also talks a lot about overpronators, wide footers, kind of that niche audience of running that doesn't always get the love that they probably need. So that's our panel here today. And so what we'll do is we've got several kind of like thought-provoking questions that we're going to lead you through. We do have a comment apparatus through whichever platform you are watching. So go ahead, throw comments in there. If there are follow-ups to the questions we're talking about, we'll try to get to them. We may get to them at the end, but just know that we know they're there, and we'll try to get to them at some point. But the first kind of question I wanted us all to think about is the main source of reviews, I would say, on the internet that everyone, even people that don't watch reviews, are familiar with, are the product reviews on the brand and retailer websites. Amazon probably being the place where most people read them. The question I have, and which I'll throw out a little answer of my own first, is do consumers care about those product reviews, or have they become so jaded because companies are giving them away? And will they care more or less in the future? For myself, I would say I don't think many consumers care right now because they don't get the info that they want, which to me is things like sizing and fit. As a tall guy, I can never tell if a pair of pants, especially a pair of athletic pants that doesn't have an inseam measurement, is going to fit, for example. I do think people will care more in the future because it's not like we're getting less products anytime soon. More and more products are getting on the market, and so there's more and more need, in my mind, for reviews. So what do you guys think about the product reviews on retailer websites?
I think it's tough with the reviews on websites because a lot of times if you read them, they're just super vague. They're really just kind of bullet pointed. They're not giving you real information on, like you said, Drew, how does this fit? How is this, was it in comparison to this? So there's not much of that. I mean, I think Adidas does a decent job with their little scale showing you kind of getting an average fit, what people are saying about it. So, it's kind of wide or kind of long. We get better at that, but it's still not really in depth. So I feel like it's more up to us in that space to do it as a third party to show, hey, we're going to dive deep into the shoe. It may not be on the website, but I feel we're going to give out more information because we're actually, taking the time. We're not looking at 100 different shoes because those websites are looking at so much different product that they can only give you X, Y, and Z really quickly, while we're going to focus on it for a set amount of time for whether it's a write-up or video. So we're going to get, I think, a little bit more in depth than the actual website will get.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, the old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And a lot of times when you hear people give their opinion or the thought on a product, they either loved it or they hated it. There's very little middle ground of, you know, who it worked for. And there's a lot of noise. As you said, sometimes some of those reviews are paid for, right? Somebody received a product in exchange for saying something about it, whether it was good or bad, they just had to say something. You don't know what to trust always, but, you know, some tools will come out and are already sort of out there to get through a little bit of that noise and make sense of what's real and what's not. And then, you know, I think one of the things that's kind of a value, whether we like it or not, is if a product really has a lot of positive reviews, whether, you know, what the words are, it doesn't matter. But if it's a really high ranked product, you know, typically customers are going to tend to trust that. So that's kind of where I think we'll probably stick around unless we have a better way to cut through, you know, the noise and those opinions.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Before I was doing any YouTube reviews, I was, you know, just a consumer myself. So when I was looking for a running shoe, I would go to, I don't know, say Hoka's website or whoever it is. And I didn't necessarily find like what they were saying about their product super helpful, but what I did like use as a starting point were like the customer reviews and like how many stars somebody would give a product. And some of those reviews can be really thorough, but then others can be just like bad, terrible. It was the worst I've ever worn. They really give no explanation as to why. So I do think that there's a place for it, but I think it's better to kind of look at like a more full length, in-depth, unbiased review on like whatever medium you prefer.
Yeah, I think Jeff was right when he said that you don't see very many in the middle reviews on those. It's either someone that's really, really happy and evangelizing or someone that's really, really mad about something. But of course, you know, producing reviews myself, I know that those middling reviews, which honestly a lot of products are, they might not get as many views or something like that from a reviewer because there's a lot of people that are just like, that's right in the middle. I don't care about that. It's not as polarizing as some of the other things. It's kind of an interesting conundrum there. So let's talk about. We'll go from there because so many of those reviews aren't great, or you know, as Mike said, don't cover a lot. What goes into making a good review? And this is kind of the main question why we got everyone on the panel. Because I know we have aspiring footwear reviewers or product reviewers out there who are hoping to get something. But I want to have us kick off this question with Jeff, because I think he's probably got a lot to say, because Runner's World has some crazy processes and tech that maybe the rest of us don't have to do some reviews. And but since he's got almost all of that at his fingertips, I'm really interested in what he has to say on what exactly he makes that good review.
Yeah, thanks. So, I mean, the biggest thing for me is trust from the readers. You know, we talk to an awful lot of people who are looking to us to solve a problem. This running shoe is a tool for somebody to accomplish their job, right? So we have to really dive into testing first. You know, a lot of people will, you know, they do their one-person test and they review it and they give their thought on it. And that might work, you know, if somebody is just like you. But oftentimes they're not. So we actually have a network of about 400 wear testers.
Wow.
I just made everybody reapply to be part of the program again, and we're bringing in some new voices as well, just to kind of keep things fresh and keep everybody working hard. But so we, at any point in time, we have probably 200 people in pairs of shoes, and we're constantly cycling and renewing. But everybody's local, so we actually meet with them just like they're going into a shoe store, fit them. Pre-pandemic, we fit them. I'd be on my hands and knees making sure a shoe fit with somebody and that it met their goals. What do they want to do? Is it, you know, are they training for a marathon? Are they on the trails? Whatever. Make sure that the product is going to work for them. And then they go out and run in it for a month and live with it and beat the snot out of it. Meanwhile, we're back in the lab testing all of the mechanical parts of the shoe, you know, the flexibility, the cushioning, the energy return, and then bringing all that together. And it's a ton of data and a ton of effort. But at the end of the day, we know, you know, we put a shoe on anywhere from about 15 people and of runners of all types and sizes and speeds to sort of figure out who it's going to work best for, and so that we can make that recommendation for the reader. So I think that's what, for us, that's what makes a good review, is testing the snot out of it so that we can actually figure out who it's going to work for best and make that recommendation. Because we want to be sort of the storefront for runners. We want to help them do the research, find the best options for them, and then click off to seamlessly purchase, if they're increasingly purchasing online now.
Yeah, and I want to make a note on that. That's why I love the running companies, or the companies that do running shoes. They are very proactive about getting shoes out, even to us that are individual critics who kind of have more of the, movie critic type take on a review. They get those shoes out early so that, and there's hiccups there every now and then, especially, with COVID, we saw some of that, but they want the consumers to be armed with more information when they go buy a shoe. And I really appreciate that they do that. And, they open themselves up to some criticism, and that takes a little bit of guts when you're that product line manager that just spent 6 months to a year working on a shoe. Cause, it's not going to be fun to get, torn apart by a couple people who you don't even know who they are in runner's world, or random reviewers. That's tough as a human being to throw your product out there.
Yeah, it's interesting. We work so far ahead of deadlines because of our testing process, and then also the print deadlines. A lot of times the shoes come directly to us from the factory. So I'll get a size run before the product manager will get, their sample. And they're kind of like, what did you think? And it happens quite regularly. And it's a lot of trust on their part, but, ultimately they've been working hard, and hopefully they're putting the best product forward by the time it gets there to that stage.
Yeah. And that makes me wonder, you guys say that, because if I've noticed that running shoes do seem to get a way, way bigger testing window than any other sneaker. Like basketball shoes is kind of hit or miss if you're going to get them like that before they come out, the day they come out, or after the fact. And it's almost, I don't know if it's because maybe it's easier, more people are running. Like that's more of a widespread sport that everyone can do, as opposed to some of the other things out there. But it's just, you guys just made me think that that's very, very interesting. You would think that if anything performance-wise, that the companies would want to get that review out there so more people are going out buying XYZ performance shoe. But again, I don't really see many things dedicated to purely basketball or purely like soccer cleats or whatever it may be. So that's just, I guess it's really just something made me think.
Well, I kind of wonder if it was Runner's World that made that change happen in the industry. Jeff, could you comment on that? Because maybe it was them, and then the sneaker companies followed them. Was that how it happened, or was it some other way?
It's quite possible. We've been reviewing and testing shoes since the 70s, and doing big exhaustive reviews for decades now. It's also the biggest participatory sport. There are somewhere around 45 million runners in the US. You're not going to find that many basketball players or soccer players or whatever, just because I don't have to field a team of 9 to do the sport, right?
For sure.
When the pandemic hit, I didn't have to worry about my gym being closed or finding rink time.
Yeah.
So we can all do that, and that's a huge benefit. But yeah, I think, Drew, you might be right that we probably drove it. And I know we talk, with the brands all the time, and our testing process and what we do actually kind of influences some of the ways that they look at their products and build them, like stack heights versus midsole thicknesses. I get totally geeky on it, but we started measuring things differently than other brands were. So they all sort of started saying, why are you guys doing this? And then some folks even changed their ways of measuring. So we do drive some change.
So then, Emily, you as kind of, let's say you're probably the newest, one of the newest running reviewers on the block, but you've gotten quite a following as kind of a single critic point of view with your own intricacies. And I like it because you're very like upfront and honest about how your running style is, like how much of an athlete you are, how your feet are, we know everything about you, which it's to your credit, so I just kind of like, now we've seen this, the big Runner's World with kind of the rotten tomatoes of running shoes, so to speak. Now we've got you. So tell me, like, what made you want to, like, what was missing that made you get into the review game? And then how do you kind of keep it going, with that one viewpoint and kind of standing out?
Yeah, so it's a bunch of different stuff. Like, as I said before, I started out as just like a running shoe consumer who was just like a huge geek on running shoes. And I used to watch, like, even Jeff, I used to watch your videos on running, like on the website where you would just have every shoe, like what shoe after shoe after shoe, and like talk about all of them. So I've been watching this stuff for a long time. And obviously, one of the main like reasons why I wanted to like to have my own channel is because there's not a lot of women in like this space. So that was one reason. But I think, like you said before, uh, there's not a lot of talk about like overpronation and, you know, stability shoes and pronators, especially like on the YouTube space. I know like Runner's World definitely does their own form of that, but it's a lot of neutral shoe talk in the running shoe YouTube space. So I just try to, like, for myself, I'm the only person trying the shoes. So I don't have a team, but I try to do like a first run impressions and then take it to like a full review after I have like double-digit miles in the shoe. And while I'm reviewing a shoe, I just try to think about like, well, if I don't like this, if this doesn't work for me, doesn't mean it's a bad shoe. It could work for this kind of runner or that kind of runner or this, you know, different foot type and this stride. So I try to take all that into consideration and realize like I'm not the only person in the room. Like there are other people watching this who have, you know, different running types than I do.
So I'm assuming like that's come from lots of conversations with other runners, things like that. Has that where you've gotten a lot of that knowledge base in addition to kind of watching other reviews online?
Yeah, for sure. You know, it started from watching other reviews online, but, you know, I have a bunch of running friends and we all have very different opinions on what shoes work for us and what brands work for us and what don't. So it was a lot of that. And just also looking at like the comments on other like YouTuber reviews and like what they're looking for, what they want to see more of. So I try to take a look at that and take that into consideration too for like my own reviews.
Cool. So then, you know, kind of following along that, let's stick with Emily. What does a review need to come out before a release date? Because we just heard Jeff say he's getting the shoes like 3-4 months early, you know, but is it necessary? Like, does the audience member of Run Like Heller or just the average person on YouTube searching up sneaker reviews, do they need it early? Let's start with you, Emily.
So because my channel is newer, I only started getting shoes early, like just recently. So I got a lot of these things as everybody else was getting them. And I used to think that that would like really hurt my channel, or not necessarily hurt it, but like it just wouldn't get as much attention because everyone was already looking at the other videos. But as I've, you know, done more videos and done more reviews, I've noticed that that's not necessarily the case. People are always going to be interested in a shoe, whether it's coming out a month from now or they have it in their hands. They want to know the opinion of the reviewer, of the content creator. And I have people who look at my reviews on shoes that came out like months and months and months ago. And there's always going to be somebody who's still interested in that shoe, whether it's, you know, coming out in a month from now or if it's been out for a month. So I haven't really found that to be a huge issue for me, thankfully, but there are some cases where like for viewers, like for more views on your YouTube video and stuff like that, sure, if you have a shoe early, you'll probably get more views initially, but I don't really feel like it matters anymore.
I like that you mentioned the people that come months after, because I'm sure you have people that are super Run Like Heller fans, right? But then you have just average Joe that's in a Dick's Sporting Goods looking up shoe reviews before he buys something. And what I've seen in WearTesters data is we'll see little spikes when a new colorway comes out, when a shoe goes on sale. So, you know, 6 to 9 months into the life of a shoe, and all of a sudden people are seeing it on the sales page or on the sales rack at the local store. And then we see a little spike. So it's interesting that shoe reviews are not like some of the, you know, the Mr. Beast type content on YouTube where, you know, there's millions of views all in one day. It's something that's worthwhile for a year and maybe more. And, you know, same thing with web articles as well. I'm sure people are looking up those Runner's World guides to like what, you know, best stability shoe, best, you know, all the stuff they do, you know, months and months after a shoe's released. But Mike, you hit a lot of you hit a lot of hype shoes in your reviews, and so that's kind of a different area of the sneaker world than running. Do you need those shoes before release date, or do people just say, too late, I don't care anymore?
You know what? It's kind of a double-edged sword. So with my channel, yeah, I mean, every so often I will try to get, one of the, the hype shoes, but I try to really service the things that people aren't talking about as much. But I mean, I'm like behind me, the Kobe's on top. I really wanted that shoe. I'm a big fan of that particular sneaker. And because I didn't want to lose out on it or I had to pay an insane amount of resale, I bought it early. And I just like, this opportunity for me to go in and do a review on a shoe, because I have a habit of, before I do a review, I go look it up. I would say, all right, is this worth the time and effort doing a review? Because within the space of just, it just kind of doing a spectrum of sneakers, there's some things like the hype sneaker that only has, it's kind of a flash in the pan. It's like, oh, this is coming out, this is popular, boom, we're gonna get a ton of views. And that was a good case study, because that one, up until it came out on the 15th, it really was one of my better videos. I can put it in probably some of the higher tier of views. And especially since I'm just getting started, there's so many things that will pile on top, because I mean, you guys, Drew, with WearTesters, you have guys like Foamer and Jock who will do that same type of shoe. And because your audience is bigger, I kind of have to try to see if I can, kind of like slide in front just because of that. But on the flip side, like I say, I try to service sneakers that don't really get as much love. And I think my best viewed video ever was the Adidas BYWX 2.0. It was a basketball shoe that wasn't super big in the States early last year. And it came out, but in very minimal like colorways, it wasn't talked about. And doing that shoe, it actually serviced a niche that people wanted to see, because no one made reviews. So it just depends, really. It's like either A is hype, or I look up and say, hey, this even talked about. And then I really will base a purchase off that. I found a performance shoe that's not being serviced online through reviews. And that's kind of where I find success, because there's someone out there, whether they're at Dick's Sporting Goods or Foot Locker or searching, resale sites, they're looking for, hey, is this actually worth my buy? Looking for a little affirmation of this is, someone else has bought it. So it kind of is a double-edged sword when it comes to how those views work, for me at least.
Yeah. And then Jeff, on your side, does the majority of the Runner's World audience, who I'm assuming are not the crazy runners, but more the, weekend warrior types, do they care about early reviews, or is it just kind of whenever they're in the market?
It's a mix. I think a lot of it depends on what your business model is for, your own unique position too, whether you're trying to grow your business or you are in the hype space where you need to be there first and get scale. My boss is our reader, our customer who's actually paying money to read what we do. And that's how we frame it from our editorial staff on down. So while there's some shoes where we just undeniably have to have something on it when it first comes out, like the Nike Vaporfly 4%, when that came out a few years ago, we actually got one pair early, got him into a lab in Portland, got a guy running in him at like 2:17 marathon pace. So he was running, 5:0 whatever per mile on the treadmill. We tested everything in 3D motion capture and muscle activation and a lot of things to try to, because this was the first shoe of its type, to make some bold claims. And we knew it was going to be one of those immediate hits that we had to have something to say. But we had to do it in our way too, that offered that service to the person who was reading it. So we'll do that occasionally, but what our readers and my bosses typically tell us is that they want that trusted, tested expertise. A lot of times they're researching what they want to buy, or they're also sort of validating what they wear. They've always loved the Asics Gel Cumulus. They've been in the 22. Should I get the 23? Yeah. And so we see that. So, being the first isn't always important as being the best with what we can do.
Yeah, makes sense.
No, and that got me thinking, how do you think your audience is reacting to hype entering running so much more? It seems like, not just Nike. I mean, Nike kicked it off, sure, with Vaporfly and Alphafly and being super limited. But But now we're seeing that, none of these other carbon fiber plate shoes, they can hardly stay in stock. How are runners reacting to that? Because to me, that's been in the broader sneaker world for a while, I was like, oh, you guys are in for it now. But I'm interested to hear from your perspective as someone who is really trying to service a different, a slightly different audience.
Yeah, it's not, but there's the hype element of it, but it's got to live up to it, right? And the fun thing about our audience is they put it to use. And I got to tell you, it's a lot of fun to feel fast. Doesn't matter what fast is, but like this new wave of shoes is like outstanding. It just puts a smile on your face. And it also, one of the really cool things is it delivers a promise. When you buy this thing and you open the box, it's your ticket to good times. And it's like, whether or not it's simply fast on its own or exciting because of the carbon fiber plate and the foams or whatever, it gets you excited to get out there and run, to actually do the training, not take a day off, not, it's raining today, I don't want to go out there, because all of a sudden you've got this thing in your hands that's gonna make you go fast, and you better be ready to take advantage of it. And so it's kind of changed the conversation in the way a lot of us have trained and run. But still the workhorse shoes out there that are not sexy. They're not, some of them are gray. They've been around for 20 iterations now. They're still the best selling models because they work. So there's the really exciting stuff that people are kind of like, yeah, this is awesome. But most days I'm going back to that boring old shoe that just gets the job done.
Yeah. No, I think it has definitely added a lot of excitement to running. Across our community, we've got a lot of basketball players who run on the side for conditioning, but it has gotten them to take a deeper look at running shoes. And should I have a faster shoe and a everyday shoe? They're starting to learn that terminology, and it's been really interesting to see more people kind of digging into running shoe tech. Whereas basketball has always been sold tech first since the Pump and since Nike Air and Zoom Air were introduced, but I feel like running is really hitting a nice stride because of that. So let's pivot just a little bit. So Mike, why don't you tell us what info needs to be, what info do consumers need more or less of that's in reviews today? I think there is, people hit certain categories, whether it be cushion, materials, fit, support. In running, there's a few other ones: stack height, drop, durometers, various things. But tell me, in your opinion, like as we go forward into the future, are these consumers, are they getting smarter and need different info, or do we need to double down on certain aspects of our reviews? What do you think?
So that's that's a tough one too, because I sat there and thought about this a while ago, and I think personally, and I think you guys are going to feel the same way as me on this, is technical info is what the consumer needs, where it comes from, the cushioning, the different materials, shank plates, the uppers, the materials. Those are all things that are necessary to make an informed decision and make a good review, so you can help that person make that decision. But it's getting tougher sometimes, because you look at certain sneakers, and I'll use the Kobe Protro line for an example. They really harp on certain things like, we now have the Zoom Turbo unit in the forefoot, but they don't tell you what the actual foam is in the heel. Like I need to know that so I can get you a better review. So we as reviewers need to get more lined out information from the brands, because I can talk about that Zoom unit all day, but someone's going to ask me, hey, what cushioning was that? I'm like, I don't know. So technical info is something I think needs to be pushed more. And I think stories, I know maybe there is a running shoe or performance shoe that doesn't have a story just yet, but when it comes to those 4%, the Vaporfly 4%, it's nice to always tell a story about, what was it? The break-in two. Yeah, that's always a great story to tell with it, because no matter what, someone is going to look at the review, but they want to hear something with it. They like something that goes along with it. So I think a good story is always nice. But saying that, you have to be careful, because I think things we don't need so much is, this person wore this in the NBA tunnel walking. That's that's cool, I guess, but I don't care if, you know, Travis Scott wore it. I want to know what it felt like. I want to know, does it work for me? And that's something, Jeff, you guys do great. I mean, I know Emily and I, we're like a one-man crew. So you guys have this, you have all these people to help test. So I think that's a very big thing. I think getting more input about with actual functionality of, oh, we caught a picture of someone wearing it. And that's kind of, that's what I feel like. Yeah.
Tech was a huge thing in shoes more than a decade ago. When the industry went through minimalism, you know, all the tech just got stripped out of shoes as they went down to like almost barefoot style shoes, right? And there was a really interesting transition that happened in running at that time, is that we started talking about the runner first and about their experience rather than about the product that was going to solve whatever they had. And tech is starting to creep back into shoes. You know, that's undeniable. We'll go through cycles. But I think that long-lasting thing of like solving that problem for that person and telling them what that experience is really helpful. We even got away from using branded names, you know, Saucony's Power Foam or Asics Flight Foam. We let it creep in a little bit from time to time still, especially if we're talking about it across different shoes, so we can, you know, say you're going to have that similar experience. But ultimately, you said, I kind of don't care what a brand calls their foam as long as we know what it is and how it performs and how, most important, how it feels. So getting that experience across and, you know, being able to relay it to another product or another shoe so that somebody kind of, before they even have it in their hands or put it on their foot, they know, okay, this is in that ballpark of what I'm going to like. Is important.
Yeah, I know for me, the most like boring part of the reviews is just like, okay, the midsole has, you know, Power On Plus and it's this, you know, this stack height. And, you know, that's kind of like the boring stuff. And I think some viewers do enjoy that. But I think, like everybody said, what they really want to know is like your experience with the shoe and how it worked for you. And another thing about that too, though, is I know for me, I don't necessarily love watching somebody like completely trash a shoe and say it's garbage all across the board, because, you know, it might not necessarily be garbage for me or for, you know, somebody else. It might work really well. So I try to give my opinion, but also, you know, have some sort of like, okay, well, you know, it might not be great for you, but it might work for this kind of person. So definitely like a little less of like trashing or complete praise, more down the line of like how it feels, how it might feel for XYZ kind of person.
Yeah.
I like the how it feels thing, because when, you know, now with the brands pumping out their own press releases through Twitter and Instagram, people hear all these superlatives about new foams and tech and things like that. But I think they're looking to individual reviewers or publications that they trust to tell them how that actually translates into feel on foot. What other shoes does it feel like? You know, if I'm coming from this shoe, is it going to be bouncier? Is it going to be stiffer? Like, what's going on? And I think us having tried lots of shoes can offer that and kind of cut through, help them know what's marketing versus what is truth that will help them in their daily run or playing basketball or whatever. One thing I've also seen that people react really well to in our reviews is us taking original pictures or B-roll of the shoe, whether it be in action or just, you know, lying on a table, because I think people have kind of gotten desensitized to like every shoe looks so cool in the marketing images, right? Like even shoes you might see later on and you're like, how did I ever like that colorway? But I think they like to see if someone kind of, you know, who they view as not like a professional marketing agency type person can still make the shoe look cool. Like, can I, like, you know, a 6'5" guy who's, you know, the picture of a basketball player turned runner, basically, can I look good in the new Puma running shoes? You know, stuff like that I think is interesting to people. And it's one of the things I try and get in as much as possible, is like, you know, this is accessible to a normal person, not just a professional athlete.
Yeah, in my videos, like I have like a 1-minute segment where I just like run slow motion to a song in the shoe. I mean, it's completely, you could take it or leave it. I'm sure some people just skip right over it. But I think like what you were saying, like my idea with that is not to just show myself just like running around, but also to kind of like be a little bit more relatable. Like I'm not an elite athlete by any means. I'm not winning any running races. I'm just a person who likes to run, who enjoys trying new running shoes. And I think that can be relatable to some consumers for sure.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's good. That gives us the next jumping off point, because we just started talking about, what's the content of those reviews. So Emily, what are the most important mediums for reviews going forward? We've got right here in the four of us, we've got video and we've got written kind of on lockdown. Is there anything else on the horizon? Is one of those going to win the day in the future? What do you think?
I think there's always going to be a place for like the written shoe review and the full length YouTube video. I don't see those personally like going anywhere. I think those are going to be like our main, spaces to create content. One thing though that is something to explore. I mean, for me, I don't know if anybody else here has explored it yet, but like for podcasting, with a podcast, your content is slightly more accessible. Someone can take it and listen to a review while they're running or in the car or, stuff like that. You can do that with a video, but it's not as accessible. You can't really like run and watch a video at the same time. So that's definitely something that I think like we should explore. And then there's like this whole other branch of stuff like you see on Instagram, where you have like these Instagram reels where you can do like short form video where you can give like, I don't know, 3 bullet points about what you like about a shoe and what you don't. And then you have like TikTok for all those Gen Z people out there. And those are 2 forms of content that I think like maybe sound kind of like, yeah, not so much right now, but going down the line, I do think those are going to become more important, especially if you want to kind of expand your viewership and like the age demographic there.
Yeah. What about you, Jeff? You guys are, I mean, you're probably one of the biggest written review sites in the world in terms of shoes. How do you think about going forward? What other mediums you need to be in, or do you have like an experimentation philosophy? Like how do you guys manage that?
Yeah, we've tried a bunch. We have the legacy, right? We have print. Yep. We have online, which is written as well. I did tons and tons of videos where I was holding it up and talking about it, and we haven't been doing those lately. We're doing more video content now, and a lot of it involves the testing process as well. So how do we deliver that though? Does somebody want to sit and watch us run a bandsaw and cut a shoe up and put it through some mechanical testing? Maybe, or is that a part of, or do we create sort of a different type of review for TikTok and something else that's going to be more engaging for a Facebook audience? As these new audiences evolve, we have to figure out what's the best way for us to use them, and not just think that we're going to be able to go in and find success because we're Runner's World, and that the same thing we've been doing is just going to work there. So we do have to experiment a little bit and find the right way. We're trying with TikTok right now. It's very, very early days for us, but it's fun to sort of see what's going to work and what audiences are going to respond to what. But I think, for me, like there's something about a print magazine still that, is just, it's awesome. You can really spend some time with it. The online reviews are huge though. Like I think those are here to stay, and with the video component as well, just simply because you can get anything you want at any time. And as we've been talking about, it's that tool that helps you make that decision when you're shopping. That's always there. So for, our purposes, it's always going to be important.
So from your perspective, does the writing talent that you guys have plenty of, can all of them make the jump to video? Do you have to be selective about who does it? What's your philosophy there? Because it is interesting, like you've got so much knowledge there, but I'm sure some of them like to be only writers, whereas, you've got someone like Bill Simmons, who is no longer a writer, now is a podcaster pretty much full time. It's interesting how some people make the jump. Tony Kornheiser was a writer, now is like PTI, that sort of thing. Do you guys kind of go about it the same way as ESPN, just plucking certain people, or do you just try everyone and see who people resonate with?
It's hard. I mean, I'll admit, like, there are a lot of people who just don't like to be on camera, who, have to really, really work at it. And it can be really tough. Coming from our background where we were print people, that was not, especially magazine print people, they like the video element of it was totally new, totally different, and really hard for some people to adjust to. We continue to try to develop those skills with people. We don't people think we're this massive company. Runner's World really isn't that big. We're a pretty small staff and pretty nimble. So we work with the talent we have, and we develop our testers. We bring in people who have a real passion for shoes and testing gear, and are curious and work through the processes and can put together a sentence. And sometimes we worry about the words a little bit after that. In fact, we can develop the words, work with them editing through the editing process and grow. But it's really the expertise that we lead with. And if they can do video, that's great. But we can also sort of slowly develop that. It's a hard thing though.
Yeah. Mike, what are your thoughts as an avid podcaster and YouTuber? What's your thoughts on reviews going forward?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at this. That I didn't even think about doing like short reviews for like podcasts. That was actually, should probably just do the audio recording and see what happens from there. But I think one thing I've tried to avoid, just because I no offense to anyone who uses the platform, but I really just can't stand TikTok. But I understand that people do use it. So I might eventually have to start just easing my way into doing short form reviews. I've done a couple of like the reels, just give a couple like, oh, this is a quick review. Boom, you guys is really bite size. Because I know at this point that people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter because there's just so much information in front of everybody. It's not necessarily like, oh, they don't want to pay attention. It's that there's so many things that are thrown in the computer screen or phone screen or whatever it may be that they just want to keep clicking to the next thing and see what's next. So I've kind of done a couple short form ones. I may do more of them just depending on the shoe, because like someone's on a go, maybe they're in a store and they can't look at the whole 9 to 12 minutes I put out on YouTube, but maybe 2 minutes, 90 seconds, whatever it may be, they can get the bullet points like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the one I'm looking for.
Okay.
So I think short and sweet is going to start getting more. We're going to start seeing more reviews like that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, there's always some other notification popping up that can pull people away. Even when they want to stick with the video, they just forget to go back with it or stick with an article.
Yep.
So then from a trust standpoint, because some of us have individual opinions. Jeff has a staff, a small staff, and then he's got 400 reviewers out there. Are customers, audience, are they looking to? Do they look as one public? Do they look at a publication and like WearTesters or Runner's World or Sneaker History and just give credibility to everyone underneath that banner? Or does each reviewer need to gain that credibility themselves? Because we live in a world with a lot of influencers, and so each one has their own audience. But it's interesting because, and we'll start with Jeff, because as Jeff said, like one person cannot understand everything about all the different feet and provide all those viewpoints. So Jeff, what's your opinion on, can everyone within the Runner's World banner continue to have that credibility that people need to pay attention to something online? Or do you have to do things different in the future?
Yeah, years ago, 2012, it was just me as the gear editor at Runner's World. And, I was the one who wrote every shoe review, and I was the one who did every video. And so I was the person that people knew at Runner's World. We've grown our staff. So we have Amanda Furr and Morgan Petruni on staff, and they've grown into their roles. They're great shoe reviewers. They've sort of gotten the trust because they are part of Runner's World. We trusted them to write the reviews and work through the process, and that says a lot. We're putting the legacy online and with our trust and credibility with our readers. So there is that element, at least for us, with the consumer. And then as they've grown with their reviews, people have learned to know them, and they sort of take on one brand and sort of write the reviews for that brand. So if somebody knows they want a Brooks review, they're going to read Amanda's work. Mizuno, they're going to find Morgan's work more and more readily. So I think, that the trust has to be earned. It might be a little bit different for other publications, but like for our test staff, the wear testers, the 300 plus people that we're working with, they're not really writing the words, and we don't really need them to be experts in the shoes so much as just people who love to run and can make sense of what they're feeling and be able to tell us that through a survey. And then, we have 15 people that we can pull their experiences from. And then that editor, myself, Amanda, Morgan, we'll make sense of that. We'll pull it together to tell. So that those testers are never really speaking for the brand, although sometimes we might quote them directly if their experience highlights a point of a shoe. But it's us as the reviewers who've really been working hard to earn that trust.
Cool. Well, that's an interesting thing. It's like you're the filter by which the rest of the team of reviewers comes through, and so you guys have, the three of you have very honed like what's actually important to people. That's really interesting.
Yeah, we can only put so many miles on a pair of shoes ourselves, and if we're working through reviews of 30 pairs of shoes between the three of us, it would be like I ran in this shoe once or twice, but we can work through a whole lot more miles, thousands of miles on shoes to figure out how they're going to work and who they're best for.
Well, and kind of on the same point, Emily, you just came out of nowhere fairly recently. How did you build credibility? So how does someone that's watching us right now that wants to review something, how do they build credibility out of nowhere? Because Jeff, to his point, he had a halo, and when like someone graduates to the level of a reviewer, you kind of know, like, okay, if Runner's World's chosen them as a reviewer, they're good. But once again, you just started uploading videos on YouTube. How did you go about getting that credibility for yourself? Or was there a watershed moment where you're like, holy crap, people believe what I'm saying?
There's really no great answer. I will say that the reason why I didn't start reviewing shoes earlier is because I was worried that nobody would trust what I had to say. There are so many different reviewers out there, and there's Runner's World, and there's I can't even countless running shoe reviews all the time on YouTube. But I just think for me, I just try to always be really honest and really articulate what I'm feeling when I'm running in the shoe, and try to give as much spec information as I am provided or I can find. And I think consistency also plays a really big role in that. I'm constantly, every week I have something new that I'm reviewing or trying to review. And I think that builds up over time, and people start to see your face more and watch your content more. And I just think it has to do with just being on YouTube for a certain amount of time. I mean, there was really no special video that I put out where everybody started watching it and it was like I got 1,000 subscribers in a week. It took a lot of time. But I just think it's staying consistent, staying in people's minds, in their face, and giving good reviews, and just trying to articulate your thoughts as best as possible. I mean, that's really how I think I ended up getting, and I'm still building on the subscriber count that I have.
Yeah.
And Mike, you had the sneaker history halo from being on the podcast when you started your channel, but again, there's a lot of reviewers out there doing a lot of shoes. What's your process of building credibility?
Yeah, just kind of when I first started, I just kind of let the audience know exactly, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Kind of set an expectation of, hey, I'm not going to be whipping out, $10,000 hype sneakers. That's not what you're going to get with me. You're going to get, this, and this, and really being consistent. I think that's kind of everyone's kind of overarching theme, is being consistent. And I think just being genuine. Again, I think that's, everyone's kind of umbrella we try to stay under, because you can tell if someone's just trying to say, oh, this, and this because XYZ gave this to you, or so on and so forth. But it's being consistent, sticking to what you're going to, say, like, hey, this is what my channel is, not pulling a bait and switch on anybody. And I think a lot of times just providing backup to what you're doing, because Emily, you mentioned it, you kind of do the slow motion, kind of B-roll of you running in it. Jeff, you guys have, views of people running, and showing that activity, if it is a performance review, that way they can say, oh, they actually are doing something in this, as opposed to just, oh, from my thought, you know, you could tell a shoe's like brand new and clean. I think that's kind of one of a minuscule thing, but seeing the shoe has been used in your hand while you're reviewing it, unless you just have double up, you can show a clean one and use one. But I think showing actual use and say, hey, I put myself out there to give you guys my best thought of this sneaker really helps when it comes to being viewed over and over again, because people will start building that trust with you at that point.
Yeah, I like what you said there, Mike, because you basically just gave us a primer on how to stand out from the influencer ambassadors that are out there reviewing shoes. You know, you've got to show a shoe that's actually used, or, you know, if you're a runner's world, you've got to be like, hey, we had it tested by this many people, you know, and we're featuring quotes from each of them. Oh, and we also sent it to a lab, you know, and Emily's perspective, she's got B-roll. I think, you know, actually showing that you're putting things through the paces, or, you know, I think people have also gotten to know you, Mike, and they know like, oh, this guy's wearing this shoe to work. You know, if it's a casual shoe, he's wearing it out, you know, he's wearing it through the rain in Houston or whatever. And so they know they're getting something real with you. And I think that's important. But we're getting close to wrapping it up. So let's end with kind of the final question of, you know, what is the future of reviews? Is there anything like wild you see on the horizon? Because I think we had one of our commenters say, you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I think we've already mentioned that there's some very big generational differences, right? So let's start, we'll go around the horn here. Why don't we start with Emily and tell us kind of, what do you think the future of reviews is? What, you know, if you could try something wild, like what would you do to see if it worked?
Wild. I don't know wild, but I definitely think for me, I need to branch out and try different mediums like TikTok. I need to just bite the bullet and do it. and you know, step out of your comfort zone, because I saw somebody wrote like, like if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, like you're just going to get the same results and you're not going to see any growth. So looking into the future, I do think honestly that like Instagram Reels is going to play a big part. I do think TikTok is going to play a big part. And then another thing that I was thinking of before too is like live streaming and being able to like interact directly with your viewers while you're reviewing a shoe could also be something that we could tap into more of in the future. So I think those are definitely, and podcasting, definitely the things that we need to look forward to. While writing and video is great and will always hold its place, there are things that we kind of need to expand on.
Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we're going to start getting more, you know, besides taking the steps myself to taking like going to different platforms that I haven't used. But I think as a whole, I think eventually we're going to start seeing brands actually embedding these videos within those websites, their Nike sites, their Adidas, their Hokas. I feel like they're going to start bringing people on, maybe, hopefully not, I don't want to say contracted, but I want them to get paid for their work, of course. I mean, I'm one of those people. But I feel like they're going to start taking those third-party reviews and putting them on their website, or give you links to them. That way you can get a review. I know it's going to be kind of sketchy at first because people are going to say, oh, you got paid to do this review. You're going to say nothing but positive things. But I feel like it's going to have to go that way, because YouTube and these other avenues, these media avenues, they're getting the clicks anyway. So the brands are going to want to capitalize on that. Again, whether it's a good, in the middle, or maybe not so great, which they're going to probably filter those out. But I think we're going to see that kind of peppered in eventually.
Yeah, I think a good example, if you might not have seen it because you're not as much in running, is Running Warehouse. They have their digital media guy, Connor. He does reviews on the sneakers. Now, he doesn't get quite as in depth as say a Runner's World or Emily does, but he kind of gives everyone the tech lowdown and stuff like that. I'm sure he's got a fine line to walk in terms of being careful what he says, you know, with the brands, and because they've got to sell the inventory. But I think they've kind of started pioneering that, and that's really interesting. And Jeff, from your perspective, what's the future of reviews look like?
Yeah, Mike, you made a pretty good point there. I like that. You know, the brands are getting a lot better at storytelling. And now that you see more of them going direct to consumer and e-commerce, there's a huge focus. They're going to be looking to do more of that. And whereas they used to have to go to retail to tell the story of a shoe to a customer, right? And they're not doing that anymore. So they will invest in that. They will find ways to, whether they're going to do it themselves, whether they're going to partner with writers, or whether they're going to partner with brands like ours. That remains to be seen, but that'll happen. I don't want to give away some of my other secrets, but one of the things I said our audiences are, my readers are my boss, right? And so we've actually been bringing in some of our Runners World Plus members to test shoes for us. And some of them have actually stuck and have been long-term testers now. And so we're going to continue to do that. It's really building that trust with those readers, showing some people in, behind the curtains, and allowing that audience to see themselves in it as well. People who are readers just like them, had that opportunity to get into a pair of shoes, work with our staff, and learn and take a shot at it. So we're going to continue to do that. Say more of it coming forward. But so it's less of just me sitting there telling you what I think about a shoe versus like us collectively solving what does the shoe do.
Yeah. And I'll end with mine. Do you guys remember Just for Feet? Used to have a half-court basketball court in the shoe store. I would love for some chain, I think it would have to be Dick's or Foot Locker, or someone who has access to a lot of product and a lot of resources, to create kind of a concept store where maybe you order everything online, it goes to your house later, but they've got a full size run of running shoes, and they've got a small, rubber indoor track, and then they've got a half-court basketball court. And, those people that are looking for a performance shoe go into that store, try on a couple things, maybe dribble the ball a little bit or take a couple laps around the track. And they get to see, or, have a little bit of maybe a CrossFit setup. There might be some liability issues there, but, they get to try all those shoes. And that is really why I love the local running stores, because they let people, the one in Orlando where I'm at, Track Shack, they let people go out back and run around in their shoes,
cool.
right? And to figure out if it's for them. And, I would love to see brands or big retailers embrace that, whether it's only, in big geographies where it can support it, but where you could actually go try on and do a little bit of performance and say, okay, yeah, this is going to work for me. But that's kind of a pie in the sky vision. I'd love to help someone execute on that concept. But I want to thank all of you, Emily, Jeff, Mike, for participating in the panel. And I want to give a big shout out to Nick Ingvall for organizing Sneaker Convos. I think this has been a great conference. For those of you that have only tuned in for this session, there's a lot of other content on the Sneaker History YouTube and Twitch. About any topic on sneakers you can imagine, sustainability, mental health, how to get into the industry, bots for those of you that want to get mad watching a session. There's a ton of stuff out there, and I just want to thank everyone for participating, and I appreciate everyone here. I know we had a couple questions on pronation. I know I was just looking at the other day, there's an article on Runner's World about pronation, and then Emily could also give you some suggestions. So maybe DM her on Instagram or hit her up there with any specific shoe questions. If you're a bigger runner, hit me up, DM me. If you're popping ollies, DM Mike. And I know Jeff is very responsive as much as he can be, but usually, he probably sends you a link, because most of the time there's an article about it on Runner's World already. So appreciate everyone for tuning in, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
All right, thank you.